For today's episode, we are joined by Missy Livingston, CEO and founder of Twisted Wares, one of my favorite brands. Put the fun in functional gift products. Missy, thank you so much for joining us today. We're so excited to have you here.
Thank you so much. I feel so honored when I'm invited to record these things, and it's happening more and more often. But yeah, I'm always like, okay, I like talking about myself.
Well, you have an amazing story and a super cool brand. So, and plus, most of our founders that we work with are female founders doing direct to consumer. So my audience absolutely loves hearing from people that are doing the same thing, that are in the same battle. So we are pumped to have you here.
Yeah, it's a battle.
It is, right?
It is a battle.
My favorite line when people say, hey, I want to start an e-commerce business because I want passive income.
Oh,
yeah. I'm like, oh, if by passive you mean working 80-hour weeks, then
yeah, that's fine. Yeah.
Dive right in.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. So true. So good. So Missy, can you give us a little background on your journey of starting Twisted Wares?
So, my whole entire background is real estate. So, I grew up around, my dad was a realtor, my aunt, my mom was a realtor. I mean, it was just all real estate, whether it was lending or commercial or, residential. So I swore I would never be a realtor, because every teenager's like, that's the worst, and, but I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I knew that when I entered college, which my parents did not, support me going to college because my grades in high school weren't great. And they're like, yeah, no, we're not going to do that. And they're like, you can sell. You don't need to do that. You can sell anything. They didn't care what I did, but so I waited tables and did all that fun stuff. And I always had a side hustle going on, always. So I've looking back, I'm like, I am definitely a serial entrepreneur. I've literally had side hustles since I was 11.
That's amazing.
Doing shit. So, I eventually got into real estate because I started potty training my oldest, and I was like, this is worse than working. So I need to work. And I was living in Seattle at the time. And, my husband worked for Countrywide.
Yeah.
In one of my side hustles, I became a mortgage broker, and I realized that we could, getting a hold of appraisers was very difficult. And my husband is a numbers guy.
Yeah.
And he was a rebar detailer at the time. I said, you should go to school and become a real estate appraiser. And our marketing plan is just answering the phone. We're just going to answer the phone.
We're just going to
pick up the phone. We're going to have business. Yeah. And sure enough, that's what he did. And so he worked for Countrywide at the time. And then the market tanked in 2008. So we had just bought our house.
Oh.
We had just started a complete remodel of that house because we don't like to do things easy.
Let's go all in.
Yeah. And I was very successful as a realtor. I was a very successful realtor. So anyway, the market, he got laid off from Countrywide when they shut down. And, this is why we have savings. I really wasn't that worried about it. I'm like, we are fine. This is why we have savings.
Yep.
This is why, I still have all these deals happening.
Yeah.
And then the banks started closing and I couldn't close a deal. My customers were just dropping like flies because nothing was happening.
There was no lending. It just shut down.
It just shut down, and it was basically overnight. And we've never not been able to make money. He can go, he can go appraise in the field. Well, if there's no lending happening, there's no appraising in the field happening. So at the time, we had a second mortgage on our house, and we ended up meeting with a bankruptcy attorney.
Yeah.
Had to foreclose on our house, we tried short selling. The bankruptcy attorney, our judge, wouldn't let us keep our house.
No.
And it was, we had a car repossessed.
Oh.
It was just going from number one agent to within 6 months, the possibility of having a foreclosure for sale sign in front of your house.
Yeah.
It was bad. It was crushing. So, I was like, we need to leave. I just can't possibly stay here. So we like packed everything in a U-Haul and drove to New Mexico, which is where my dad and stepmom live. And they were like, you can live with us. You know, there's a few other things in there, but we got to New Mexico, found out we were pregnant because
of course,
let's do that. Yeah.
Perfect timing.
Yeah. And so we were basically homeless. Like, and yes, we did have a roof over our head, but
yeah, it
was horrible.
Wow.
It was just really horrible.
Oh my gosh.
And so it took about 18 months for him to get, I didn't want to go back into real estate. There wasn't real estate to go back to, but it took him about 18 months to find another job, and which is what he did. And that's what got us to Texas. So in that time, you know, we are starting over. We have less than $5,000 in our, I mean, I want to say maybe 1,000. Like we had no money and we had to move across state. We had to, all the things. I had a baby at home now and, you know, 2 other boys. So I have 3 boys total, and I need to hustle. So I started thinking of things that I could sew. My mom had taught me how to sew when I was young. Right. So I'm not an amazing sewer, but I can sew a straight line, you know, and follow a pattern. So I got on Etsy and Pinterest and was like, what can I make and sell? And it was during that process, while I was kind of in the throes of coming up with something to sell, that the baby started walking at that point. So every time he came in the kitchen, he would pull the towel off the stove.
100%.
And when you were on a budget, like every ounce of laundry makes a difference, like everything. Yes. So every time it fell on the floor, I was just like, oh my God. And it just over and over again. Yeah. And I'm like, why don't they have a towel that I actually use for more than my hands? Like grandma's crochet thing. You know, I remember.
You can't use that.
Yeah. And I went on Etsy and tried to find others, and there was like uglier things. Like if they could make it uglier, people have. And I was like, why don't they have a towel that I actually use on the dishes that stays put? Right. And I just like stayed up one night and figured it out. And I came up with a loop on the dish towel, and I went and sewed one and figured out how to fold it. And that's how I came up with the hang tight towel.
Yes.
Yeah. So
that is such a victory.
And then it's like a problem that it's not that big of a fucking problem. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it was like, I always say, like, I couldn't control anything else in my life. I was going to control that fucking towel.
That towel had to stay on the stove.
Yeah. So that's how it all started. Do you want me to show you how it works?
Yes, please.
Okay. So all of this is like one of our towels. This is the loop. So here's your regular kitchen. This is a flour sack towel. They're really large, but this is the loop. Okay. All of my towels have that loop. So you would normally hang it on your oven like that, right?
Yeah.
You just pull that loop from the back and it's a slip knot.
That is so cool.
And it stays.
Oh my gosh.
I mean, it's like a simple improvement and then I got the patent on it. Like I thought it was a big deal because I was using them. Yeah. And then my neighbors started one. Yeah. And then I started putting them on Etsy. And then I went to, I think the first like show I did was our McKinney Farmers Market.
Yeah.
So I did the farmers market, and then it's called McKinney Trade Days, which is a once a month like flea market. And then I found out that they have a big, like it's one of the largest flea markets in the country, but it's 45 acres. It's held once a month in Canton, Texas, which is about an hour and a half from here. And that is once a month. So I basically just kept selling them that way. And then in my Etsy shop. And by doing that, like I knew I was onto something because people kept coming back. They kept coming back to buy more. The towels looked completely different than what you're looking at now. Like these are, I would go to Joann's with my coupon.
Yeah.
Again, I was broke. I mean, we literally had $30 extra for me to like start this business.
Right.
And
so bootstrapping is a very real thing.
Very real. So I would go to Joann's with my coupon and I would buy flour sack towels in a pack of 2. And then I would cut them into 4. So now I had 8 towels, and I would buy extra fabric to make my loop. And then I would sew some fabric on the bottom.
Yeah.
And that red one behind me, that was one of my first ones. So that's like kind of what it looked like.
Yeah. That's amazing.
So I knew people were coming back to get them. And now I was sewing them all myself, but I knew that going wholesale was going to be my ultimate goal, because I could really, like, if it was a thing, I could make some real money there and turn this into a real business, So yeah, I did the flea market thing for I guess I started my Etsy shop in 2012, and I didn't start wholesaling until 2015.
Wow.
So I had 3 years of just like digging it out.
And in the grind, day in, day out.
In the grind, in the sweaty. I was selling, dish towels in dirt.
Yeah.
But I learned a lot in that time. I learned how to explain the loop. Like, that was a kind of an obstacle. People didn't understand it. I learned how to explain the loop. I learned that I can't always be there to explain the loop. So I would make videos that would like be in my booth and show people.
Right.
I tried all of the things. All of the things.
So one of the things, Missy, that I absolutely love from that journey is your mindset through that. Right. Yeah. Because being an entrepreneur, being a founder, you are constantly what I call going into the dark.
Correct.
Like, you're just jumping into the dark and you're like, I hope this works out. I don't have any light. I don't know where I am. And I'm just going to go in here and I'm going to try to bring the light. I'm going to try to illuminate this space now.
Yeah.
And it can be really, really scary.
Yeah.
So how do you think, how did you stay in that game? Because it's so hard.
So my husband and I always say, you got to throw the hat over the wall. Well, we had chucked the hat over the wall. Like, there was we didn't have another choice.
Yes.
First of all, everyone thinks real estate, like, I'll become a realtor and you just immediately print money. Getting into real estate is actually quite expensive to stay in real estate.
Yes.
So I knew, and I was so burned by it, I knew I didn't want to go back to that life. So yes, he had a regular job now, which is so helpful, when you have someone with something like food was going to get on the table, which is great. But the hat was thrown over. Like, I cannot just do nothing, and so there wasn't a choice for me. Like, it had to work. That's why, like, if I got feedback from someone on the size or the price or whatever, like, I had to make a change quick and test that new price out or test that change out, because I had to make money every time, going to these, you think flea markets aren't free. You may be, it was, I don't know what our rent was there. I mean, at some point, I want to say it started out as like around $100. And then I got like a covered space and that was $150. And then I got one that was in the like better area of the flea market. And that was like $200 a month. So I knew I had to sell $200 to cover the rent, plus what I paid for, the products and all the stuff. We weren't paying myself or for my time, but I knew that if I had to keep coming, I had to make at least $1,000 every time I went.
Yeah.
Like, I have a funny story about how I'm like so good with my numbers. Do you want to hear that?
Please. I want to hear that.
So, cause I said, I always had a side hustle all the time, like growing up. And I remember we lived in Phoenix, Arizona. And I said to my mom that I wanted a lemonade stand. And she was like, that's fine. She goes to the store, she gets all the things. And I sat outside and sold lemonade all day. Yeah. And I made $25. I thought I was rich. Like, I was like, oh my God, what am I going to do with the $25?
Yeah.
So I told mom, I was so excited. I brought all the stuff in and she was like, we'll sit down later tonight and we'll go over your numbers. And I was like, okay,
Yeah, whatever, mom.
Yeah, whatever. So I just remember the smell of that kitchen. Like, it was so distinct. She shows me all the receipts and it was $28. So I owed her, it was like 28 or 27. Like, I owed her $2 on top of the 25. And I was devastated.
You were heartbroken.
And she made me wash windows for $2 for the $2. Like she made me wash the front of the windows, front of the house. After working on, like just the thought of it just makes me want to cry. It was so horrible. But she said to me, if you know my mom at all, she's super funny, but she was like, I'd know my numbers before I did that again. And I was like,
you're like, all right, duly noted, Mom. You made your point. Wow, that is an amazing.
She made the point, man, because I knew exactly going in how much money I had to make to continue doing it. Or I'd have to change.
There's some key lessons here that I want to extract. So number one is you came in with the mindset that we're doing this. We're going to be successful. We're making this work. And if you come into entrepreneurship or founding a business with this idea that, well, if it gets tough, I'm going to quit, you're pretty much going to be done after 2 weeks.
Correct.
Like you're done. The game's like, if that's your mindset, you should just quit now. Like don't start.
Yeah.
So you've got to be dedicated. You have to have, you've got to have the consistency and the confidence that you're going to pull this off.
Yeah. You have to throw the hat over the wall and go get the fucking hat.
Yes. Yeah. You got to be
no choice.
You got to be all in. And then I think the second lesson here is that determination is absolutely crucial, but you've got to know your business.
Yeah.
You have to know your numbers. Like if your costs of goods are so high and your customer acquisition costs are so high that you can't make a profit on anything that you're doing, well, you've got a bad business.
Right.
And so many founders come to us and they're like, I've got this idea. And we're like, awesome. Let's look at your numbers.
Yeah.
And we start to look in the numbers and we're like, this is a great idea, but the way that it's set up right now, you're never going to be profitable. So how do we fix that?
Right. I've been thinking a lot lately of not just knowing, yes, you got to know your numbers, but just because you have an idea doesn't mean it will sell. You know what I mean? Like I was happy that it was selling, but I was like, is this a thing? Like, does anyone really care? You know? Yeah. And like I said, like it didn't really change until I started putting words on the product, which is another story if you want to hear it.
I want to hear that story.
It's kind of funny. Like, so I was at the flea market. I had a woman that she's like, oh, can you make some red ones? And I was like, yes, you know. Yeah. So I was like, oh my God, I'm getting like orders now, you know. And so anyway, I came back the next month with red ones. And she said, she came into the booth and she was like, oh, they're not brick red. Now, that's my fault. Like, I wasn't clear. My red is different than other red, but I was pissed.
Yeah.
Because now what am I going to do with these red that yeah.
I've got these red towels. Who do I sell these to now?
Yeah. So I went, you always have a space behind the booth where you can just cry, you know? And I went back there and literally Googled on my phone how to print words on fabric. And because I had no idea how to do it, went to Joann's with my coupons again and bought transparent transfer paper.
Yes.
And put on those red towels, I put the words "fuck it." And I brought those back and they sold immediately. So I was like, I think I'm onto a thing. Like,
this could be a thing.
Yeah. And I was like, I have a lot of words that I can put on things. Like, I can do that.
I've got a lot of words.
Yeah. So that's how the towels, like, that's how it really started taking off. Yeah.
Okay. So here's another lesson.
Yeah.
Is that a lot of times when we look back, things work out.
Yeah.
But we can only connect the dots when we're looking back.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't really work forward. You can't like look forward and be like, I'm going to connect these dots. Like it's always hindsight. Right? Like if that lady hadn't ordered the red towels that weren't brick red, then you wouldn't have been put in that place where you're like, okay, now I have a problem that I have to solve.
Right.
So it goes back to this really crucial, once again, founder mindset where you bring a problem, you're like, breathe through it for a second.
Yeah.
Now I got to figure out a solution. And a lot of times those little pivots, I've seen this happen so many times with our businesses, is they'll have a little pivot and that'll open up a whole new revenue stream.
Mm-hmm. I had no idea that I was just pissed, you know what I mean? And I was like, part of it just made me smile every time I looked at him with the words on it.
Yeah.
And I was like, look, I don't care, but maybe she'll walk by and see that I put fuck it on it. Like, whatever. But, you just have to keep going. You know what I mean? Like, I was surprised that people, and I was worried that, like, do I want to be known as the girl that puts naughty words on products? Like,
right.
I was very scared. And then, but when you lose everything, it changes how you do things. Cause honestly, like, my mantra every morning is I give no fucks. I have no more fucks to give.
Yeah.
And it is a daily reminder that, like, I don't give a fuck what anyone thinks about what I'm doing, because it's what I'm doing for me and for my family.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's like, what are you going to do? You're going to take my house away again? You're going to put, because I've already been there. And now I'm here. So let's go again. Round two, I'm up for it. So, like, so going back to, like, extracting all these lessons, there's so many good ones here, it's this idea that when we stop worrying so much about what other people are saying and we just run our game, and then we get that feedback loop going.
Yeah.
We're like, oh, okay, towels with words on it. There's a market here. I'm going to triple down on that. And you run in that direction, you start to see growth and you start to see wins.
Right.
And I think that's exactly, like, when I talk with so many founders about their journey, that is a reoccurring principle. Is they're like,
it is recurring, and it keeps reoccurring even as my business has grown. I mean, it's just grown and grown and grown. And where I'm changing things now, like, you still have to, the lessons are still there. Things get differently hard. Yeah. They're still hard, but, like, I like problem solving. I mean, most entrepreneurs really like problem solving, and I really like it. So it's not that I like, oh, I love the pain of that. I don't, but I do like solving it and figuring it out. And some I don't, and I have to walk away. Like, as we've grown, we've tried different technologies and things for managing our inventory and things like that. And I've tried and been driven to drink over a few, and finally had to say, like, we need to walk away. This project is not working.
Yep. Yeah, totally.
So know when to end it too. Otherwise that could drive you down.
Oh my gosh. So true. Yeah. If you get super hyper fixated on something that's not working, but you have something that's working over here, but you pull all your attention off the working thing, well, then the working thing stops working.
Right.
That's bad too. Oh my gosh. So there's this lesson in, like, just any endurance sport, is that the pain always is there. You just get faster.
Yeah.
So it's like your ability to do the work gets exponentially greater. Yeah. But you're still in pain. It still hurts. It's still hard.
Right.
Like, there's still challenges, but usually the challenges and the problems you're solving are much better, bigger problems. Right. At the very beginning, you're like, man, I've got $40 to buy fabric.
Right.
And I've got to go to the flea market. And
I got to turn that 40 into 60.
Yeah.
Like, without a doubt. Yeah. It's, even that reminds me of, like, when we lost everything, we weren't the fastest. We never lost all that. You just don't think you're going to be homeless.
No.
No one plans on being homeless. No. So you just don't think that it's going to keep getting worse. Hence, let's have a baby. Right. Because you're like, we'll be out of this in a little while, Fine. So my lesson was there. We kind of took too long to make some decisions. Yeah. When COVID hit, we were Johnny on the spot on those decisions, because we've been here before. We ain't fucking around. Yeah. We have to now make it. We made very quick, decisive decisions. Luckily, the business was not as affected as I thought it would be, but I was prepared. We were prepared to eat ramen.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
No, and I love that. It's like, here's this crazy thing. We see this happen all the time with marketing, is something will happen and everyone throws their hands up and be like, we're all done.
Yeah.
Not done. This happened actually 2 years ago. And this is going to happen again in 2 years.
Right.
Or a year and a half. Like, but the same principles apply.
Right.
like marketing, when you really break it down, it comes down to, does your product solve a problem?
Mm-hmm.
And can you tell that problem and create that solution for that customer?
Mm-hmm.
And if they see that vision, they're going to buy your product.
Right.
Like,
even if they don't know that they had the problem, like sometimes 100%. You got to tell them it's like, oh, I never thought about that.
That's part of the journey. That's part of that journey of marketing. And so it's platform agnostic. When TV showed up and radio died, everyone threw their hands up and be like, we're done. We're out of the game. Right? But those that pivoted to TV, then were off to the races. And those were like, no, we're sticking on radio. They probably didn't do so well. So it's just like this interesting thing. These changes happen, and there's always the people that are like, we're out. It's over. It's done.
Yeah.
And so it's people that buckle down and get innovative that make that next. I love that. I love that. So we were talking a little bit before this. You had a really intriguing question. You're saying, if you were to do things over again, like looking back kind of in hindsight, connecting the dots, what would you potentially do different? And I actually love that question. What would be your answer?
So I was just thinking about that this morning. So now I'm like going blank. So what I would do different if I knew where I was now, right?
Yeah.
10 years ago and starting over, I wish, God, do I wish that I would have documented more, and maybe document's not the right word. Yeah. I wish I would have taken more pictures. Now, I wish I would have taken more pictures and just to document where I was and the struggles that I had. I wish I would have had more videos of it. I started sewing on my dining room table in a rental in Texas, on a $30 machine that I still have, but I wish I would have documented more for sure. And then I wish that, that's probably the number one. The other thing that I always, which when I wrote down thinking about that this morning, I was like, the next thing is the rule of two, and that comes back to documenting. Maybe not. Yes, I needed videos and stuff just so I can share of here's what it looked like before. I mean, yes, I am successful. I run a good business, I appreciate every customer, all that stuff. But I was sewing them all myself. I wish I had more pictures of that. Yeah. The other thing that I wish I would have known prior to starting the business was I kind of stick to the rule of twice. So if I have to do it twice, that means I can actually train someone else to do it. So, and so I keep it on a sticker on my desktop here that says the rule of twice. If I find myself repeating it, I probably need to write an SOP and give it to someone else to do, because I don't need to be doing that. I need to be coming up with the ideas and things like that. And I don't need to do this little task that maybe it takes me 2 seconds to do, but honestly, what if I wasn't here to do it? I can hand that off to someone else.
Yes. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
And I think that's definitely a lesson once you get some momentum.
Correct.
Right? But it's a super crucial lesson once you get that thing off the ground. At the beginning, there was no room for the rule of twice.
Correct. Right? Yeah, I couldn't even hear it. If someone had told me, I'd been like, fuck you. I'm just trying to sell some towels.
I gotta get to the flea market.
Right.
I don't have time for this conversation.
I'm not documenting that, Yeah. But I think if I would have, I don't know, if someone can hear, if it helps anyone that maybe I can do that. You had said when we were talking about, hiring help, it comes back to hiring help and getting a coach. That is one thing that I've always asked for. I ask the craziest questions of people and I expect a no. Some of my friends are like, I cannot believe you asked that, but I'm like, I don't expect them to answer.
Yeah.
They don't have to answer. I'm not offended if you don't answer me. I just kind of want to know what you paid for your house. I just don't think that's a weird question. I think it's my background, but
that's so funny.
And then I feel like if you're not going to tell me, I'll find out.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I know how to find these answers, but it doesn't matter. Anyway, when I had started really sewing a lot and I knew I could not keep doing it myself, I knew I needed help. I went on Amazon and I found a book, and it was called The Entrepreneur's Guide to Sewn Manufacturing. It was like a textbook. And I was like, that is the book I need,
That's it.
And I ended up reaching out to the author, who I found out lived in New Mexico.
No way.
Yeah. And we were in Texas at the time. And I said, I'm coming in. Can I meet with you? And she was like, no, why are you reaching out to me? Like, she wrote a book, and I just kept trying to charm her that I don't have time to read your book. I have $600 to make and I need help. And she ended up letting me come. I had to pay her $800, which was like a lot. And it was the best lesson what she taught me in that 6 hours we were together is still implemented daily in my business.
Oh my gosh. I love that.
Just keep asking for help, because I'm so willing to help others because these other women helped me.
Yeah. Just giving back. I love that.
The book is still in production and she's amazing. Like, you should totally, she is anyone that needs help in sewing manufacturing. It's a great book.
It's a great book. It's so cool. I think those are really two good lessons: is document the journey, because I've been working personally really heavily on enjoying the journey.
Yeah. It's hard to remember
as a founder. It's really hard. Because we all have these goals. Like, once I get to this or that, then I'll be happy. And it's just like this thing. And I've been really focusing. This is actually a struggle my partner and I have, is we're just constantly trying to get recentered and be like, we actually love what we do. Like, this is great. But we get so wrapped up in all the minutiae. So I think taking the pictures and the documenting it almost allows you to pause for a second and be like, wow, this is pretty neat what we're building. Right.
Yeah. When I was cleaning out my 11,000 photos I have on my iPhone. I don't know but I was trying to go back in years to find, I'm digging into TikTok. So I'm like, what can I post on TikTok? And I didn't have any, I couldn't find the photos of the piles of fabric that were in my living room that were taking over the living room. The family had the table to sit at, because mom's business was, taking off. So,
oh, I absolutely love that. Those are the best. Those are the best insights.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for taking some time to share your story. This has been incredible. So, one last question to close out the meeting. What is one thing that you're super excited for this year in your business?
Super excited. I always get excited when we have new products it's like that nervous excitement, because I'm like, what if no one likes it? So we're always developing new products, but we do have a launch of some different things coming out. Okay. And I'm very excited about that. As far as, I'm taking on the challenge of TikTok. Honestly, when I actually look at I use this little calendar and I plan out I deal with depression. So if I don't have a set schedule, it's very easy for me to just stare at a wall.
Right.
And then get sad. So I have to have a very intentional schedule. Yep. And I get excited that I'm I don't know, I'm going to learn everything about TikTok and try this on, So and who gives a fuck? They'll either watch it or they won't, But I don't know, I want to talk on TikTok. I want to talk more about building the business, because that's what gets me excited. Yeah. Instead of just talking about my products, I really want to talk. I want to help other women and men. It's not like I'm discriminating, but I really want to help. You can go from an idea to your dining room to something else,
Yes. It's so possible.
Yeah. And you can grow it a lot.
So here's a little shameless plug for Focus.
Yeah.
Is we work almost exclusively with female entrepreneurs, and most of them come to us at the stage where they're on their dining room table doing a couple $1,000s a month in revenue. And we have taken multiple businesses, probably 20 plus, over the $1 million a month mark in revenue. And these are women that like their husbands then are like, hey, can I get a job at your company?
Yeah.
No, literally it totally flips. And
like just gives me goosebumps.
Yeah. So this is one of the things that my partner and I are super passionate about, is helping entrepreneurs grow. And honestly, it can be men or women, but we've just found a lot more success with women.
Yeah.
So anyways, I love that, Missy. Thank you so much for joining. I love your story, and I really appreciate you opening up and sharing some really cool things with the audience.
Yeah. Thanks.
Awesome.